Hey everybody, we'll be starting up here in just one moment. Actually, pretty soon. Welcome over for all those who've come over to Pantheon PlusYou. We'll be talking about balance and progression that Saicred kind of talked about. We had some really good bean drops there that Therek and I were like, So there's definitely some good stuff to talk about here. We're going to give it a couple minutes for people to transition over from the VR stream. Hopefully we see a bunch of people come over. We'll have a good time. And as always, don't forget that if you have never seen this show or been a part of it before, we welcome you to join into the green room where we will bring you live on the show. And you can talk about what's most important to you or what your takeaways were or concerns or anything like that. So again, we'll be starting up here. Let's do 2 minutes and then we'll go live with the show.
Sounds good.
Whoa. Great deal. Thank you for the follow there. Appreciate it. All right, I'm ready. I can't wait anymore. I'm sitting here looking at the clock, like waiting for 2 minutes to give people time. Now we gotta go.
Yeah, I've got my notes. My notes are all sorted and figured out, and I'm ready to go.
Well, everybody, get ready for some sorted notes from Therek here. Should be good to go. All right, here we go. Let's get started. I'm going to throw up the viewer warning, the splash, and we're going to get started.
Oh, we're live? We're streaming right now? Cool. Awesome, man. Let me just
Everybody, welcome to Pantheon Plus episode 54. It's kind of crazy. It was funny because the episodes were actually like starting to skyrocket because we used to do them like every other week. And then we switched to once a month and then special editions. So all of a sudden it slowed down and the rewind is catching up. So Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the show. Therek, as always, welcome to you.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for being such a good note taker. You know, that's kind of makes these shows able to happen. I'm in like goofing with chat the whole time and making fun of Ronik and taking my shots and getting burned. Quite a bit.
You had to be on your toes for that one. You had shots being fired to dodge left and right, and I'm taking notes, so you were allowed to do that.
I'm just surprised because not only did I get burned, I was thinking that Saicred was going to double burn me whenever Ronik referred to me as his friend, because I was like, oh boy, Saicred's like, I'm not his friend.
No, he didn't disown you.
He didn't. You know what? Big props, because he could have. That was a takedown attempt right there. Yeah. So what I'm going to do up in the top right hand corner of the screen, you guys will see a little vote we like to do. If you're watching the show, please vote. It's awesome. It would help us know what you're thinking. But you'll see a bunch of options there after the after like what it says. So if you see the top line, it says, what did tonight's stream do for you? And the first option there, for example, is made me more excited about Pantheon. And then you do exclamation point vote excited. And there's a few different options there. So just exclamation point vote and then your option, and that'll go live on the screen there. So we see what you guys thought of the stream. So interesting stream tonight. I know math is not everybody's favorite, but it wasn't super math heavy. It was theory heavy, right?
Yeah. I didn't find it all numbers tonight, which I was kind of thinking it might be, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it was more concept theory. So let's start with you. If anybody doesn't know how the show works, we're going to invite you guys in from the green room. We have a pretty packed green room right now, Therek. So, we'll get through our piece here. Yeah, we got, we got DM Harms, Hoye, Idiotech, John Wayne, Lucille, Zelik. Nice. They're all in there. And you guys are all.
We don't need to talk so long then. We'll get through it to get to them.
Yeah, that's another important thing. Like if you guys were sick of hearing me, all you gotta do is get in the green room and take more time up, so I don't have to talk as much. It's perfect. But yeah, the green room's there. You can hit !Discord. That'll show you how to get to our Discord if you're not already there. And then all you do is go into the green room, and then we'll announce you before you jump in. So, why don't you kind of start? You're the note taker. I like how when you guide these and kind of throw notes, and I'll jump in.
Yeah. So, I mean, interesting stuff. I mean, I found it very in depth tonight, talking about areas that people are interested in, the combat philosophy, and sort of looking at big picture stuff, talking about, this is something that Saicred said, was remembering that the game has to be fun first, and all that other stuff, doesn't matter. If it's not fun and engaging, it doesn't matter. And that's something actually JN said in the last roundtable, talked a little bit about. He can write all the great lore he wants, and it doesn't matter if the game's not fun to play, right? So I liked Saicred's story about his kids playing the game, because it sort of reminded me of like, this game is not just meant for one set of people, one demographic. It's meant to bring people in that, never played an MMO before, or, recreate that experience that we had. So I like that he's using that perspective.
That's a good point, because I think sometimes when people, when that is said, the whole, thinking about bringing in multiple people and things like that, I think at times people get nervous about that. Like they hear it not bringing in more people, but catering to crowds to try to appease people to bring them in. That's very different, right? Like, like some people say, like games like World of Warcraft, they try to appease too many people and it watered down systems. And they tried to make this too easy or this too easy so that more people had access, right? But at the same time, what you just said happened in EverQuest. EverQuest was a game that people from all over the world, different age groups, people that were our age then, and we were young, like everybody got in there, and we were playing this game. And I've jokingly said that EverQuest was sort of like the world's first social media in a sense, because you had this global connection to where the world felt smaller. Because now all of a sudden you were playing with someone from Germany, someone from France. You were playing with these people. And that doesn't mean to give up the core values of the game so that people can play. It means give people the opportunity, no matter who you are, to come play Pantheon. Now, it might kick your ass, right? It might kick your ass a little bit, but give that chance to play. And that's important. It's an important distinction. I'm happy you brought that up. I do like, though, the chat said, be like, oh, well, why do you need your 8-year-old to test it? We already have Ronek. That's his skill level.
Yeah, that was pretty good. that was a good shot. Yeah, I mean, the way they described it was two roads running parallel, right? And how do they get those new players and the 20-year veterans running, playing the game and enjoying it together? That's a great overview of things. And I think it was Saicred that said, here's what you have in your arsenal. Let's see what you can achieve with this, right? So keeping that philosophy in mind.
That was interesting too, because I wrote that down as well. Build the world first. And then the way they said it is like the classes are these design toolkits to tackle the world.
Yes.
And that's interesting because, it made me think like maybe a lot of games aren't built that way anymore. Like
I can't agree with that more. That is exactly the problem in a lot of MMOs these days, is they build these classes with these amazing toolkits and all these cool things, but there's no use for them in the world, right? Or the world doesn't match up with the toolkit. It's too fast for that toolkit to be useful in any way, right? I just talked about this in my DDO video about how the Rangers skill set in that game is awesome. They've got all these cool abilities, but combat's so fast. It's like, I can't use it in this context. So they're doing it in the right way, where they're, building the world out, getting all the barriers, challenges, and things you're going to need to overcome set up, and then building the classes to meet those challenges, right? Very, very cool. And a lot of games these days they're built backwards.
I mean, I think of something like BDO, like the world's big. It's a massive world, like people who want big worlds, but then you go into these areas and there's, a stack of like 50 lion people that look awesome. And you're like, oh, look at these lion guys. They're so cool. And then you use one ability and you just mow through 20 of them at one time and they're flying through the air. You're not like having, it's funny because like you think of like fighting games. I know that not everyone loves fighting games, but you think of a fighting game like you have Scorpion versus Sub-Zero and you use your full move set to kill each other, and it's this fight and you're countering each other and it's an epic battle. MMOs have sort of lost the epic battle. You go in, you're like, sword swipe, things are in the air, you're dead. Okay, well, I have 15 abilities, but I just used 2, right? Like, so
point. No opportunity to experience them, no opportunity to enjoy them. It's kind of ridiculous. So having what's in your arsenal, how do you use that to conquer the world? They went on to talk about health and mana and the formulas that one of the biggest changes they've made is adjusting how health and mana for players are tuned. They said early on, it was too tied to a stat. So if you were one stat point off, you didn't have enough health to basically not get one-shotted, right? And they were seeing a lot of that in the pre-alpha testing. So it'll be interesting to see how this sort of plays out in the next testing session, because again, it's not. Some people will complain saying it's probably like, well, now it's too easy, right? Now it's dumbed down. Again, but it's about balancing and realizing that it wasn't working the way that they wanted it to.
You said that, because the big thing is that's I think it's interesting to see that the VR team isn't afraid to take risks, because they are very big on the importance of individual stats. Very big. Like, they don't want numbers to be big. They want when you find a piece of gear that's +1, it's like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, it's the quote that I wrote down here was something about like making sure stats are meaningful, but creating a sort of leveling that doesn't have this bleeding edge that you fall off of and die when you're, okay, well, I'm fighting this enemy and I have 5 stamina, right? But if I had 4, I'm dead instantly. But if I have 5, I'm okay, right? So like, I think that's important
too.
Yeah, like it's important that they have such a value in these low numbers, very important, heavy stat weights that are going to matter on gear, going to matter on when you level, how you build your character. But at the same time, they're not afraid to say, okay, wait, we did, that meter, right? That you turn that knob, like we had it at 11. Maybe we need to bring that down a little bit, right? So.
Yeah. Bleeding edge. I wrote that down too. I liked that, sort of crystallized what they were talking about in my mind. I had a question too, because
Joppa just followed us. And I got like on stream, I'm sure you guys saw my face look so confused because it comes up. So I hear the whoa, 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 whoa. And his face comes up, right? Because we have that little thing. And it says VR Joppa has followed. And I'm like, it broke me for a second. Like I got stuck. Like, what does that mean? Like, it was so weird. Thanks, Joppa.
There was a Joppa overload.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out what was happening, but it's funny. He just said in chat, I just realized I hadn't followed yet. So that's funny. Thanks, Joppa. But sorry, go ahead, Therek.
No, I was just going to say, Saicred mentioned something about the health and mana formulas being applied to NPCs too. I'm not sure if I caught that correctly, or if because he did. They were talking about NPCs later, and they were saying how like, the adjustments they're making to like some of the other adjustments. Where is it?
No, it is. I know what you're talking about. They said that so the HP and mana changes that apply are global. That's going to affect players. It's going to affect NPCs. You're right. Yeah. And then what they said is what that does is then creates another balancing understanding of how the DPS is going to play out. So if all of a sudden they have a little more health, then is the DPS strong enough, or now is the time to kill too long? That's kind of how I took it. Or if it's the other way around, is time to kill too short now. So now does DPS on the abilities have to come down as a base? So that's how I took it, if that's what you're talking about. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. And it's sort of interesting to me, because it's like, now you think about this, it's this constant push and pull, right? Between balancing, player like health and mana pools for players and NPCs with DPS for both players and NPCs. Like what a tough job Saicred has. I don't realize it. I'm glad that he's a numbers guy and he's good at that, because I don't think I could do that job, but he does a great job with it.
I think we know from just past conversations and knowing him and Joppa's talked about Saicred quite a bit, and you can tell those two work together quite a bit too, with not just what was said tonight, but the way they interact. and the formulas and these things he's making to be able to make these adjustments, right? We openly talked about when we played the stream you're watching on the screen right now, that fairly simply, they were able to adjust that difficulty, right? And we saw it in the NPCs. They felt way harder than like if you watched Co do that, right? Now, like
Yeah,
they even said,
absolutely.
bosses probably need to be tuned a bit more. But like the ability for them to, and I might be misquoting this, but I believe it was even said like they had an investors thing earlier in the day, and then they had to adjust it for that play session, and that's how short of a time period, because of the way that the the system that Saicred created, this again turning the dial. Like if you have formulas that are so good that you can kind of just start manipulating dials, that's a big deal, and to have it go into effect that quickly is a really big deal. So huge hats off and props to Saicred for that, for sure.
Yeah, I think of it like tuning my guitar, right? It's like so sensitive. It's so like you've got such fine control over it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The itemization and loot tables was pretty cool to hear about, right? How they've sort of loaded up some they've changed up the loot tables to feel a little less
Less
bulky.
bountiful.
Yes, less bountiful. Thank you. The word I was looking for. Like Thanksgiving of loot, right? The
Yeah.
bounty of loot is going to
Yeah.
be less, for the next place session. So it's going to, because we have limited time in these sessions, or the testers, how they can acquire the items. They want to know, how that feels. Like, I guess that's my understanding, and that's my impression I got anyways, sort of getting a better sense of, how does it feel when it takes longer to get the loot that you're looking for, right? And I think that's really cool. I like the I like sort of the feeling of knowing something's just around the corner, I guess, so to speak. Like,
Yeah.
it could be the next one, right? The rarer drops, the more rarities involved, I think the better it feels to me sometimes, because when you get it, it's more impactful.
Yeah. Yeah. You know me. You know
You're
me.
sighing. I know you're sighing. You're like,
Well,
oh, I'm not.
no. There was, I love loot. Love it, love it, love it, love it. There was a comment that was made, where it's, you have to, progression means that sometimes you have to take a little bit more time to gear up. Right. So it's when we were playing testing sessions before that people have seen. So I'm not talking out of NDA here. Like when we did, you guys saw the rogue organic gameplay, for example, or you even saw us gearing up. We just kind of took gear off the wall, I guess, there, but I guess it felt a little quick. You were doing both at the same time. And sometimes I guess in a lot of MMORPGs, you level and then you gear. So I understand that whole concept of like you're going to find a place to level in camp and you're going to get a good experience, but you may have to go somewhere else and kind of farm to get gear. I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I do, and I've said before, I have a fear that I don't know what the limit is on how often you need to be able to upgrade. I think some of the things being said is too distant. For weapons and stuff, okay, it can be bigger because you can keep something, but I think that having options for your gear, especially because it was brought up in this stream, was like, you might be really good at something, you might be weak at something, but you can use gear and your team to kind of overcome some of that weakness, so that you're still not going to be the best at it, but there's ways around it. So if you're going to have to use gear, or that's going to be a piece of building yourself to overcome different challenges, then I feel like there has to be a certain amount of gear that drops so that you can have options. I'm not a developer. I'm never going to pretend to be a developer. I just know that adrenaline rush when you get that piece of gear and you're looking at it. You guys have seen me play. I love it. So, but I'm confident. I mean, with what they're doing and everything else, why can't I be confident in that? So
yeah. So getting it closer to the way it's going to look on when the game's done, right? Getting that rate closer it's like, I mean, that's a thing that requires testing and feedback for sure, just like everything else.
Yep.
The talk about classes, and I'm sure you were just as excited about this as I was, but lots of cool stuff. I liked how they described why the base classes are in there, like the functionality of them being foundational was the way Joppa described it, and it makes sense to me. I never really thought about it like that. Like these 5 classes that are in right now, each do something that's like a basic of the class system that they want to use, and all the other classes have something that they can use from this set, I guess you would say.
So that's what you took away. I took away from it that the most important classes were put in first, and the rest, no, I'm just kidding.
I'm looking at it the other way around. They're spending more time working on the best classes because they know that they have to,
right.
Get those right.
That's fair.
So so yeah, Monk, Ranger, and Summoner are
how much did
on.
Summoner fans just like, get this Monk and Ranger out?
Well, that's right too, because they haven't necessarily, the most recent talk that we've heard has been Monk and Ranger, and now we're getting Summoner added into that too. And actually it was mentioned in the producer's letter too about these classes being more difficult. This sort of topic was covered in the producer's letter. I mean, admittedly, I was not disappointed, disheartened maybe when I heard that they're going to take some time, and maybe not be ready come alpha time. But then I think that there was some clarification for that later in the week that's what they really want to get those classes done going into alpha, or at least early in alpha, I would say. I don't know. I'm feeling better about it now after hearing about it tonight, I think, from what I read in the producer's letter. So,
well, I mean, we've heard on air that Java talked about the Monk with us being, animations are good. They're ready to go. It has to be coded in. Some of the play style is going to be different, obviously, but that it's from a toolkit standpoint, it seems like in theory, it's ready to be fleshed out fairly quickly. And that's good, because then that means they're going to get to the Ranger for you. And then, Japa talked about why that Ranger was so important with us when he talked about, that range combat. It's a lot different than range. It's funny because range combat is a lot different than a wizard. Like casting combat versus range combat is a very different beast. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see how that will play out.
And then being able to see NPCs use those mechanics too, right? We want to see ranged NPCs using ranged physical combat. NPCs using pets, right? These are the kinds of things that we'll get to see once those classes are brought to completion, right? Yeah. And I know that we were both excited when we heard about the Monk and what was the skill?
The Liu Kang style kick.
Yeah, holding it down.
Traveling charged kick that flies you through the air. And I played a ton of Mortal Kombat, so that right away.
Speaking your language.
Like, exactly, yeah. Yeah, so it's that whole. Remember when he'd put his foot up and just like fly through the air across the screen?
Right. Raging Gale kick. Joppa just put it in chat. Raging Gale kick. You tap it for a certain effect. You hold hold your button down, your mouse button assumedly for a bigger effect. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Some people are referencing the bicycle kick. That's a different one. And they want me to make the noise. Well, it was funny because if you listen to it, it sounded like he was actually saying, "Here I come, I'm going to kick you in the face." But it was like,
I've never heard that.
Yeah, like he would do the bicycle kick and he would kick in the face. Kick in the face. Like that's exactly what it sounded like. I swear to God, that was it. How's that for points? Nice. He didn't rate me on that. Kick in the face.
Pretty good.
Sure that was it.
Clip that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but no, that's the bicycle kick. That's different than the flying kick. Yeah.
Nice.
No, yeah. In the interesting thing here that I wrote down as well is that, implementing these complex classes are going to, like you said, open up the NPC ability pool. And I'm interested, and I'd love if Japa wants to answer this, but would it be really cool, in your opinion, Therek, if the NPCs weren't tied to the classes ability groups that we were? So what if you were fighting a roguish character who had some monk abilities too? I think that would be cool.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think I would. I think that you want to be able to identify the class that you're fighting against. Okay. I think because then if you are that class, then what the weaknesses of that class are, right? I think it gives you a better ability to exploit their weaknesses.
But for bosses, maybe?
Maybe for bosses, maybe you get a little bit of that with the boss battles, but just in the general run-of-the-mill characters, one of the things they've said before, I like that, is that they are actual classes. Like you run into
they're in the world.
Whatever in the world, and they're an actual rogue or a ranger or a wizard or whatever, right? So,
well, because of our interview with JN, I went back and re-listened to Bell Iris, the whole thing, right? from
Right,
Chris
yeah.
Kane. I mean,
Good
listen to
point.
the whole thing. And that is, you can say what you want about like Jova, or what Janisova being a rogue enchanter, which was kind of like not actually a thing. Like it wasn't meant to be like an actual spell. But
Right.
but you can go through all those classes and all those characters all you want. Bell Iris is a monk wizard.
That's true.
I mean, straightforward.
You can't
like,
argue with that.
You can't argue it. Meditation from she's a monk wizard, and that's how it is. So got a couple of them.
Yeah. And Thalen Greyborn is a rogue turned fighter, rogue warrior. I mean, so there's definitely some mixing going on there, but we won't go too deep down that rabbit hole for now. Did you check out the animations that they were showing in the video? Like there was some good stuff going on in there. I know that there was rogue kicks going on and dual wielding, some different animations we hadn't seen before.
I really liked and maybe I've seen it before. I don't know, like I haven't played a Dire Lord in a while, but I really liked like the overhand where they like picked their weapon up like this and kind of came up over top jump. I don't know if I've seen that before. That was at least is clean. It looked really cool. So
yeah, there were some improvements. And in the wizard, I really appreciated them showing the wizard spell casting stuff, because that was sort of what I was trying to do as well, and with the stuff when I had a chance to do that, and we got to see like the spells being cast, so that was excellent stuff. So
well, Joppa just clarified too, by the way. He said NPCs will be based pretty squarely on player classes. Remember, there's a ton of depth and conditional logic in the class abilities that NPCs will have and take advantage of. Okay, so some specialized styles and stuff, but that's cool.
Yeah, and then he went on to say, also, once you create a universal rule like that, there's lots of fun ways to break it. So
yeah,
that's good to know. That's exactly right. We want to be able to break those. Find ways. To have them design things that break the rules sometimes. Like that's fun stuff, right?
Yeah. So without a doubt.
Yeah.
What do you want to get into next?
The notes that I had.
Okay, I'll do a couple of the QA things here that I thought were interesting, and then we'll get to the green room. So everybody in the green room, we will get to you very shortly. There's quite a bit of people there. I'm interested to hear what the community thinks for sure. A couple things, if you haven't already, please vote in our poll that's at the top right of your screen. It says, what did tonight's stream do for you? Did it make you more excited? Did it make you want to pledge or up your pledge? Did it make you confident about Pantheon? Whatever you want to vote in there. Let us know how you felt. I'm curious to see how everyone's feeling. We got 14 people who did it so far. There's a lot more of you. Vote. So the biggest things from the Q&A, they really got into the whole filling multiple roles. The firestorm that I created, I guess, with this rogue stuff. I really wonder if that stream didn't happen. I wonder, because from testing, and I did the one that kind of set the world on fire at first was when we showed the video of us doing our organic play style, and we locked that named mob down, remember? But it was only one.
Yeah.
So I just wonder where people's I don't know, it feels bad. It feels bad.
It's like, no, it's like everything else, right? It's like things happen for a reason, and that what we've seen because of what you were able to do with the rogue class has opened up this whole avenue of questions and really good questions. And I would be bold enough to say that I know Joppa and VR as a whole appreciate this kind of questions, because these are important questions, right? Everything's about class identity, and when you start, we've seen it in so many other games where you just sort of start slipping into this
on screen right now
role of getting in. Yeah, right, exactly. So you're seeing it right now of slipping into this ability where every class can do everything, and they want to be very clear about that. I think it was a good clarification, and I think what you've demonstrated is very beneficial to the conversation, to the development process.
It brought up the sort of direct questions that were answered about classes are going to have a defined primary role, and you can flex a little bit into that secondary role. Using the example of if you're flexing your muscles, you can't do it forever. You're going to get tired. And then the whole thing was like a rogue can't be top DPS and CC, which I'm completely fine with. I've told you multiple times, like, you want to take DPS away from the rogue so we can still be strong utility? Do it. I don't care. I'd rather lose the abilities of damage that are in, a lot of games that have made rogues very generic over time, to be this generic DPS class where there's so much more to it. I'd rather lose damage by far. But that being said, they brought up the enchanter, and there's some people in chat who've actually said this. Cerulean said, I don't see the big deal. Enchanters will have a full suite of buffs in addition to their CC. Totally true. And they brought up during the stream that, the enchanter is going to have the ability to manipulate how people's mana consumption works, and that's going to be a really big deal. A rogue is not going to be able to buff anybody. Rogue is not going to be able to enhance anyone else's ability to damage, except for maybe like poisons and stuff where they lower resistances. But that's nothing like, clarity or putting, mana regeneration or refunding mana to the group, or just the different things that an enchanter is going to be able to do as, a true support class. And it's interesting because the question wasn't answered, but in chat, somebody said, all of a sudden it went from being called utility support CC was kind of like what they called some of the classes. Now it just says support, which I think is a brilliant thing. The more confusing that is for someone to just know what the archetype of a class is bad. But does that mean that support role is more about, okay, I'm going to enhance my group, I'm going to also have some CC, which doesn't necessarily mean support, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because to me, rogue is DPS with CC. To me, an enchanter is support with CC. I don't necessarily think that's the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a clear, delineation between primary ability and secondary ability. You don't flip them around, and it's not intended to be that way, right? So I don't see a problem with it. I think it's very, I think it's a good design from the way it's been explained and the way that we've seen it play out. But I get the concern too, like I understand the concern, and I read the question on the forums that they read from, and I see the concern, but it's, I think it's a good problem to talk about.
Joppa says we'll be using a very light touch with the rogue. Yeah, I think the thing that was brought up was like the ability for NPCs to resist should happen. like it shouldn't be a guarantee for me to just be like, you're CC'd. It's like Oprah. Everybody
you're throwing out CCs for everybody.
Yeah. So no, I believe that that there should be some resistance capability that maybe you can gear around, a couple second cooldown just to keep things a little more tight. Things like that. They're fine.
Exactly. I mean, I remember CC as an enchanter, right? Back in EverQuest days, a resisted, enchant, a resisted CC was, you're in big trouble, right? So you need that kind of stuff.
Yeah, without a doubt. So the last thing we have to talk about, it was the huge bean that was dropped. I don't know if people like me and you were like, wait a second, like this is huge. So nighttime? I mean, did you guys hear? Yeah, did you guys hear what was said here? Like, don't bypass this. That Joppa specifically really dropped something big here. That when you're max level, you're going to want to go explore in the night. So, I mean, I don't know about you. That opened up tons of questions. Like when we are leveling in, I don't know, AVP or something, and it starts to get dark, are we like, okay, guys, we got to get out of here? Like, is that what we're talking about here? Is it so dark that it's like we are in trouble? I'm very curious. And that's, it reminds me, what was the zone? Someone just said it, Kithakor. Certainly just read my mind. So like the whole world is like Kithakor. That's scary.
Yeah. Do you remember the old NES game in Castlevania when it would turn to night, the music, like the whole screen would pause and it would be like this message, the night is dawning, and the music would change and things got bad at night. You remember that? It's like other games have done sort of similar
Simon's
things.
Quest?
Yeah, it was either the first one or second. It might have been Simon's Quest. I don't remember.
Terrible night to have a curse. Yeah, that's what
it was. Yes, exactly. Thank you. I was trying to remember the words that came on screen, but
that's awesome.
That's how that's what it got me thinking of, was like you're out adventuring around and all of a sudden, the night cycle starts to show up and it starts becoming like, all right, I'm heading home, I'm heading back to, Throwing Fast, heading back to Verthale for the night because I don't want to.
I'm very curious to know more about the whole world sort of being dangerous with night. That's very, very interesting. And it's also like, okay, well, how far is night encompassing the world? So like if this zone is night, can I go one zone over and be safe, or do I need to like go across the world? It's interesting. I think that was a big drop that, we've heard Oh, Joppa talked about. Do you remember a very long time ago they talked about the event at night with the wolves?
Yes. Yep.
So like at night, all of a sudden, like the wolf pack comes walking down a path, and there's like a major wolf, and it howls.
It was like a designed event.
Yeah. So like I get that happened at night, but like it just for the way he worded it and the way he was excited about it, something big is happening at nighttime on Terminus, and we don't know about that yet.
Well, and it's funny that this is the conversation you're having at max level, right? It's like that tells you what this is about. You know, this is like the other side of the game. It's like now we've reached max level. Now we're gonna flip the world over and do the night version of it, right? That's sort of scary.
It's like, awesome. Do you remember when you beat Mario Kart and then you had to do the mirror tracks?
Yeah, you do it in backwards mode. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that's it from us. I enjoyed the stream. This is in my wheelhouse. You start talking about classes. You start talking about loot and balance and class identity. I'm very easy to play to please with that. I'm very, very easy to play to please. I'm sorry, with anything in that. So overall, I enjoyed the stream. I love talking with Saicred, even on the side and busting balls. And so for me, again, this one was pretty easy for me to enjoy. I know you, like you said, going in, you thought it was going to be a bit more math heavy, but were you happy with how it played out?
Very much so. Very much so. It was a very clean stream. I thought that they did a great job presenting the information clearly and concisely, and cool. Yeah, good stuff.
Are you ready for the green room?
Yeah, bring them on.
All right, so let's go ahead and start with our new follower, Radil. If you are ready to jump on the live show, what we'll ask of you is just unmute your microphone and headset, and we're going to pull you in. You ready, Therek?
Yeah, bring them on.
All right. I am imagining, Radil, I am not saying your name right. Is it Radil? How do you like to say it?
I typically say it as Radel.
Radil. Nice. That wasn't awful. Wasn't bad. What's up? Welcome to the show for the first time.
Oh, thank you. I have actually 3 questions for when you guys had your gameplay, actually, more than from this stream.
Awesome. I'm down for that.
Okay. So the first is being in group members with the Dire Lords, since that's actually a class I would like to play. What flex did they have beyond tanking, did you feel?
DPS. We've played, we had a NDA. What can I think? No, we talked about it. We talked about it with the rewind. We've played with 2 Dire Lords in a group. We had one with a 2-hander and one with dual wield. And where one sort of went with more strength and played a backup tank. So it was, that's where they're flexing is my guess into that.
There was
off tank holding extra mobs and DPSing.
Yeah. And there was also the interrupt aspect that Nathan, when he was playing the Dire Lord, was able to do. So he and I were alternating interrupts. So against casters, he was really useful in more than just as a tank. It was sort of a caster control type flexibility a little bit. So
what else?
Okay, and the next 2 actually go both to minus. So when you're playing CC, I'm not going to knock on how it was. Yeah. How did you feel the aggro was when you're playing that part? Did you feel there was enough aggro that you might have got from playing a CC class? And the second question I had on the rogue was, were you disappointed in the torch nerf?
Oh, no. Okay, so 2 good questions. Torch nerf, thank God. The amount of trolling that could occur to rogues is so bad, in my opinion, if that torch was there. Then, so if a torch did it, then does fire on your weapon do it? Like, I think it was
fireball from the wizard.
Like does a fireball from a wizard, all of a sudden you're out of stealth. I think that it was something that would be really, really hard to have and have functionally fun. To go back to what they were saying, I don't think it would have been being a rogue and having that happen. People would have a lot of fun at your expense, but you would not be having fun. Like,
what's wrong with having fun at a rogue's expense? And they always pick on it.
Man, I agree with you. I think I demonstrated that it's fun to have a rogue and have fun at the rogue's expense. I used to follow him when he was stealth. Remember, I would follow him and get us both killed. That's what I'm talking about, having fun.
All the time. In regards to the other piece about CC, I think that's something that they're building now. That's been a lot of player feedback. If you watch the stream, you'll notice anytime CC was broken, they ran straight for the healer. I think that's just something that's being fixed. And they actually talked about it. Aggro and threat generation is something they're working on fixing right now. So I foresee that changing. I think that ultimately you'll see like enchanters and rogues that are CCing, or people who are holding CCs are probably going to get some of that threat. I don't know. I think it'll change. I think healers are still going to be a pretty big threat target because they're healing everyone and keeping them alive, and it should be. If we were playing and we were player characters against other player characters, we'd go kill the healer first, right? So
exactly.
It makes a little sense for them to have it, but at the moment, I think that I would probably I didn't have any threat ever, even when I DPS, to be honest. Between the threat that the Dire Lord was holding, especially because the way a Dire Lord is built is that they don't have necessarily snap aggro, but they build aggro to a point where you're never taking it off of them once they get there. And they do it with an ability called Provoking Phantoms. They throw it on a target and it continues to escalate for every hit that you hit them, which is a increasing threat generator over time. So you get this thing up to like 20, I'm just making a number up, it's like 20 stacks or something like that while it's still on there. And the amount of threat you're pulling in on the Dire Lord is insane. Now, the reverse is, like I said with that healer, the Dire Lord doesn't have a great ability after something's been CC'd to just grab it, right? Where it's going to take some time to build that up. But that's also where, an enchanter could come in the future and have something like a mind wipe. Rogues do have an ability. I had it on I always am trying to make sure I don't break anything here. Joppa's watching. I'm going to get kicked out. But there was an ability I had when we did our organic gameplay. It was just like a dagger. I never used it, but it was an ability to blind the enemy or something and get rid of your threat. I never really had to use it. So it's there. So that tells me that there's going to be a reason for it eventually as that's built out. So I hope I answered your questions.
Yeah, that was it. And Joppa dropped a bean in the chat. So thanks, guys.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, man. Take care.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Joppa said only special kinds of flame will be able to expose the hidden. So, yeah.
I like that.
Drac was sort of lavishing the ability to break your stealth constantly with his wizard fireballs. Yeah.
Could you imagine?
He was loving that.
Yeah, boy. I'm sure he loved it. Amazing questions. Great first time ever being on Pantheon PlusYou. Come back for more, honestly, we do. Awesome.
Totally.
All right, let's go with Hoye. We haven't talked to Hoye in a while. My screen is like, there's a light right where it's at. Okay, he looks like he's ready to go. He's not muted. Let's bring him in.
Yep.
Hoye.
Oh, I got pulled in. Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up, man? How are you?
How you been, man?
Idiotech and I were having a conversation.
All right, well, was it fun? Was it interesting? Is it something we want to hear?
Probably, but too long for that. So we'll get back to it later.
What's up, man? What'd you think? What questions do you have? Where's your thought process right
now? We were kind of talking about this, man. I don't know, man. I'm kind of confused on how I feel about some things. The biggest thing that stood out to me was the fact that they said they're kind of slightly designing classes to be able to fill a few different roles. Joppa said, flex
first role and flex into a secondary.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of, I don't know. It's one of those things that I've got to get my own hands on and see how it actually plays out and see how well it's done. So that was.
It was interesting because one of the sort of sub comments that was made in that conversation was, if they didn't do that and you've only got the one primary role, right? And then somebody else just does that better, or somebody else, like you're going to get so much. That. Yeah.
Like I already have a tank. We don't need, we already have a Dire Lord. I don't need a warrior, for example. Right.
Right. It takes away a little bit of that, utility of, somebody might offer something that somebody else doesn't, right? So,
and I think it lines up with the limited action slots. I think that's kind of why they're having to do this. I'm not trying to talk crap on LAS. You guys know how I feel about it. But I think because of the LAS, I think they're having to kind of allow classes to flex a little bit outside their normal staple.
Sure.
Well, and we've talked about this before too, quite a few times. Is like, think of the shaman. Shaman have all these crazy debuffs and all these like what are they, curses? What are they called? Boons?
The
Like
boons and banes.
Yeah, boons and banes. So they have all these spells, and like if you have 2 shaman in your group, you can have a main healer, and then you can have someone who's a backup healer, but can provide this entire debuffing and damage, right? So to me, that's cool, because it's like, how can I relate this? There's short, like in football, right? There's quarterbacks. There's the quarterback that stands in the pocket like Brady, who never moves and doesn't do anything, and then you have quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes that can do both. And no, nobody likes Rodgers. And then you can do, then you could be Jackson, who's like way more running. So it's the like flexibility of the role of the position of quarterback can be flexed in many ways. A lot of people are like, oh, they're talking sports ball again. But it's kind of just thinking about stuff like that, I guess. I don't know. I think it's important, and it gives people the ability to look at gearing differently. If it was too one way, then best in slot gear would be very easy to identify. But here, Joppa's answering. He says, I think it's a step too far to call it multi-role, but I think EQ would have benefited from some less needed core classes at the end game flexed into a secondary role a bit.
And so like, for me, I can understand, like when I heard him talking about it, it made perfect sense, and it looks good, and I even support it. Like, yeah, okay. It's just, they've got to do it really well. And it, like, for example, if let's say in this dungeon, sometimes we needed a little bit of CC. Well, now it kind of makes me want to favor taking a rogue, because they can CC pretty decently. At least,
what if you have a wizard?
And then he can DPS the rest of the dungeon.
Yeah. But and that's where I would say, like, let's say your group comp, though, your buddy was a wizard, you had an enchant, or you had a wizard and a healer, but you only had one healer, so you're worried about the healer's mana. So now that enchanter is more impressive, because if you have 2 healers in a rogue, sure, right? Because maybe the healers aren't going to use as much mana. But if you have 1 healer and again some magic users, then all of a sudden the enchanter is a little bit more valuable.
Yeah. I don't want the flexing to be done in a way where it hurts identity, especially or it robs identity of other classes, So that's why I'm saying I'm really, I feel like it's a very fine line where if they do it, it'll be great, but also they could do it in a bad way, I think. So it's just
question for you though, and this is for everybody. Chat, I really want to hear what you guys have to say. And Joppa just said identity is the only hill they will die on. Even if it means rolling flex back. A rogue. When you think of a rogue in D&D terms and its identity, is what I was doing that far off from what a rogue should be? The utility side. In my opinion, I'm sorry, again.
Yeah, I think so. I've kind of had my stick up my butt after that little playthrough that we did. It was too well. I would like to see it shorter. 1 or 2 fights at a time. Not we're gonna plan on you just the entire time focusing on CC and then go from there. Now I will say, the fact that you were so heavily focused on CC and you couldn't do damage, I understand that trade-off. It's just, I don't think in rogue should be in the same sentence.
I think in that playthrough, the cost wasn't high enough, right? That's all it was in my mind, was the cost to his damage wasn't high enough. He was still doing pretty good damage, with the CC he was doing. And that's where the problem comes in, I think, is the flex. Like, he was able to hold this flex for too long. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's kind of what I think. And I'm sure there's things to it. Like, for one, you probably had a lot of more mastery than you probably should have had at that level or something like that. And also, it's still gotta be tuned too. So, I mean, that's one of those things. I want to see how it's done, but I think they need to be very careful about how they do it, because I think it can go really bad or it could go really well. And the way that most of us have experienced a lot of these other MMOs take things, they screw things up. That's not saying I don't have any trust in Joppa or anything like that. I do.
No.
It's just, we got to see how it's going to play out.
We're just traumatized by other games. I know, man. I know.
Awesome, Hoye. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. I'm down with the Packers.
Get out of here.
See you, man.
No, I mean, it's good points. Listen, I love my rogues, but the thing that I guess, like, I don't want it to come off like I'm sitting here defending it constantly, but what I'm trying to say is, like, we just played DDO, and I love it. I think and I think most people who played DDO would tell you that the rogue is one of the most fun classes because of how it was tied to exploration, adventuring. It wasn't just I'm gonna put 2 swords on and be DPS with, like, that's it. And then so many games have done that. And to me, that's the opposite of identity. And I hope, and listen, I'm here holding up the rogue flag, like, woo, right? But I hope that you do the same thing for Ranger, right? And I hope that, like, everybody does the same thing for their favorite classes. That's where, in my opinion, if everybody feels about their class the way I feel about rogue right now, then they did it, right?
Yeah.
Like, they did it. The identity's there, and that's something to think about. So it's interesting because in a lot, we've talked about this before, Therek, in a lot of MMOs, there's a really fun class to play. And everyone's like, oh my God, this class is so awesome. And people start making it, right? And then they're like, well, all the people are like, oh, well, my class sucks. Like, well, I can't do anything. This class is so good. And what does every developer do? Instead of the classes that suck moving up and becoming more interesting, they just bring the top one down completely. And then nobody's having fun. Right. So that's, like, again, I'm not here saying rogue should be the best class. It just is. That it doesn't matter how it's designed. It's still the best class. But everybody should fight for their class the same way. We all want that feeling of having a very unique and what we believe it means. Like, so for me, it just so happened that Pantheon is, like, daggers are good, right? A lot of MMOs, daggers aren't good for rogues, which is crappy. Stealth play is great. Sometimes it's not, like Dark Age of Camelot. It's not at all. And things like that. So it's for me, it hit for me. And that's why I'm so vocal and excited about it. Right. Like, because it really hit on all the things I happen to like. And that's what I hope happens again for you as a ranger, for Drac as a wizard,
exactly,
for Hoye as a warrior. Right. All right. Let's grab John Wayne. John Wayne, if you want to unmute your microphone, your headset, we'll bring you in as well. Yeah, that's a great point too. Breakout said rogue's the best class until you break their stealth. Yeah. I'm telling you, that's fine. I'm okay with that trade-off. Here we go. John Wayne, what is up? How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Doing great.
Good,
doing
man.
Great.
Great to hear from you. What's on your mind? What did you think of the stream? What were your takeaways?
Oh shoot, I'm gonna go ahead and just start off with, I voted excited because I have been for a while, and like every time we come across the stream, yet again, it's just re-ups. It's just re-ups and keeps that momentum carrying forward, right? So I'm ready to go. But
awesome.
I did want to start off beating a dead horse. I know we've talked about it a couple times, and actually me, Jorge, and Idiotech were up in the top talking about it before, but that flex. And I think Jorge's got a good point, but I wanted to add my perspective and a couple of things that I do think is going to make that flex really influential is the limited action set, because you're going to have to pick and choose. So if you're picking like a warrior, you're going to be tanking and you're going to have your aggro abilities on your bar, but if you need to fill that flex for that DPS role, you're losing that. Now you can't do that anymore. Or you keep them on your bar and you're doing less DPS overall. So that, and I do think the resists and those hit chances, like that's something that's going to come into the game. Like, who says the smoke pump's going to hit every time? You know, maybe that rogue isn't as good as it was, or maybe that rogue isn't as good as what we thought it could be up against a certain mob or in a certain area, climates, all that stuff. So I do think people are getting a little bit too jumping the gun here. We got to remember, got to pull back. And I speak for myself too, because I get excited, but we are still pre-alpha.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, man, right? Like that, and that's the fun of this. I mean, this whole show doesn't exist if we weren't all like
Yeah.
geeky excited, right? Like to be
That's
able to talk about
exactly
these small
right.
things. Yeah.
And then
You got a huge shout out. I want to make sure you see it from Joppa. He said you just critically hit in this conversation. So there you go. That's a good one.
well,
Nice.
that's good. See, that's what I'm bringing in because I meant to jump on. You know, I've told you a couple times in the Discord that I'd be on about the trade skills and stuff like that, but I had some stuff happen personally, so I missed out. Last time I was actually on the show was when we had the Dire Lord and we got to see the Shaman Flex, and I was talking about how excited I was there, and we had some clarification, and this even brings it. It's just one step closer.
That's great, man. That's great. I
That's one
totally,
step
and
closer.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, the choices, the meaningful choices, right? Impactful choices. You know, when you choose, if I'm playing a wizard, you know, and I choose to put fire spells over ice spells on my, you know, on my set.
Calm down, Drac. Calm down.
I'm making a choice.
Drac has been tearing it up. The whole community is tearing it up tonight. We are on a roll. I think everybody's excited. And that's perfect. And I mean that decision that also goes into the gearing. And I don't think that anybody in the community needs to be so nervous about the gearing. You have climates. You're gonna have acclamations. You're gonna need multiple gear sets. So that brings worth to crafting. That brings worth. And they don't have to nerf. It's not like they're having to take and make gear drops. So, and I know Nathan Napalm, he had to worry about it too when he was talking to the boys over on, I'm going to say it wrong, so I'm not going to say it, but the other guys that are coming up that compare Ashes of Creation and Pantheon, right?
Well, yeah, don't say desperate worlds. You'll never live that down. Apparently, I said that. Apparently, I said that at some point, but I know it's disparate worlds because I checked like parts of the stream. I said disparate, but I guess at some point I said desperate. And every time I said it right, doesn't matter because the time I said it wrong is all the time.
Yeah, apparently a lot of people do, and they like to hound on people for it. So it's pretty funny. I love their nerdy joke because they bring a word that, you know, but at the same time, that gear, if you want horizontal progression, gear is the way to do it, and the mastery points is the way to do it. You're gonna you're gonna hit a level to where you're like, hey, I need a whole new set of gear. Now I have to go camp. Now I have to go farm a mob. Now I have to go to this different area. Now I might have to go out at night because maybe this resistance only drops here at night, and that's exciting. I don't know. Like, you can't add more depth to the game. You already have vertical depth. Now you have horizontal depth just in the climate system.
Yeah, I think Saicred did a great job of explaining that because horizontal progression is one of those like terms that's like multiple meanings. It means different things to different people. We all know what vertical progression means, you know, leveling. We're talking about power and that kind of thing. But horizontal is very murky in a lot of ways. And I think Saicred did a great job of sort of laying it out, you know, giving a great sort of perspective on it, you know. So
absolutely, and I'll be here waving the flag for Shaman, me and
there you go,
me and a couple other people. So we're waiting. I'm hoping, and we'll see what's going on.
John Wayne, important before you go here. This is really important because you said you were gone for a little bit and you were going to come in and talk about crafting. I just want to make sure you aware that I'm pretty much the best crafter in the entire world of
I did see that. I did see that. I was a little relieved because at first I thought I was gonna have to make all your daggers, and you were like, "Oh, I know who making all my daggers," and nah. Now we can work together. So, you know, I'll pick one, make your hilts, and you can make the blades. And we'll do
Here's what's funny. You know, that was a big swerve, right? And even Therek was blown away. He's like, I cannot believe you crafted. Like, and I thought it was this big. Here's the next word. What if, John Wayne, Pantheon launches and I play an elf rogue?
Cool. I'm just saying, you're picking about the rogues. You can't pass daggers. All right, that was your number one. Just, you're gonna have to lose the beard. You're gonna have to stay halfling. Just deal.
What is going on, man? Cats and dogs living together. Things. What's going on here? I don't know anything anymore.
If you pick elf rogue, then I might just I might have a stroke and die. I don't know. Please don't do that to me.
You and me both.
All right.
We're right there with you, dude.
Therek won't be able
to play. Out. You're gonna put us both in the hospital. Come
That's
on.
Right.
DM Harm says I'm going through a midlife crisis. All right, John Wayne, awesome. Thanks, buddy. Good to have you back, and I hope everything's well, man. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, moving on up. Thanks.
See you, man.
That's funny. I had to throw that
Great.
in there.
What a great guy. That was awesome.
All right, let's go to Zelik. Zelik, I see you in there. As soon as you unmute your mic and put your headphone thing, what is that? Unmute, yeah, whatever. Whenever those two symbols by your name go away, I'm bringing you in. Yeah, here's Zelik. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, dude.
Let me introduce you correctly.
Not a whole lot.
Let me introduce you correctly, everybody. This is Zelik, the officer, first ever officer of the Plus Guild. All right, there you go, Zelik.
Yeah, somebody's got to keep you in check.
You forgot Ranger too. Zealous
I'm getting to that. So I wanted to open up with, Minus made the comment about rogues being the best class. And it's really important to have wrong people in this world, because if people weren't wrong, nobody would be able to learn and progress. And so eventually he'll learn that Ranger is the best class, and we'll go from there.
The day will come. We're not there yet. The day will come. But with you and me working together, we'll get him to the point where, you can at least acknowledge the Ranger as being a viable class at some point.
Absolutely.
We're gonna have a dual command, right? There's gonna be a dual command.
Oh, there will be. There will be.
I'm gonna duel both you guys at the same time. I don't know how that works. I'm just gonna smoke trick you both and just let you. You're just gonna sit there. I'm gonna keep you guys smoke tricked for hours. You can't even get out of the duel because you won't even be able to move. And I'll just type jokes out, like dad jokes, as you're smoke tricked. That'd be the greatest moment ever.
Choking on your own smoke while we shoot you from above with arrows.
So 100%, 100%.
Oh no! So I wanted to touch base real quick on the, or not touch base, I guess, but talk about the bean that you brought up tonight, right? The night. So the first thing that went through my mind was Ocarina of Time.
Ooh,
every time you're traveling through. Yeah, and so every time you travel through at night, you get the undead. Now, it was simple there, right? 2 little skeletons chase you around on the world map. But there were other entire aspects of the game. There were whole zones that were a completely different experience when you went through the zone at night. And when you went through at day, it was its own thing. Like you mentioned the Kithakor example. But it could even be to the point where that totally changes your abilities and how you interact with the world. Like going to the flame example, maybe you can't see some of these things and even interact with them without certain abilities and certain magical ways, maybe keepers, to even be able to interact with them in the first place and experience that whole new world, that whole new section of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it as sort of a, the dark side of the moon sort of idea, right? And you mentioned, Ocarina of Time, and I mean, Zelda's been doing this mechanic, doing this idea for a lot of years. Almost every Zelda game has something like that.
A lot of Zelda influence here, Joppa.
Yeah,
it's a good call out.
Yeah,
well, like I can't remember the zones for the life of me, but there was the one town where you had to go and collect all the chickens and throw them in the pen. But some of the chickens you could only find at night.
That's right. Yeah.
And there were just other aspects of it like that too. And certain NPCs are only available there. And hopefully our Veilhawks are better than the chickens when it comes to the flying mechanic. But
well, the thing is too, we're one of the classes has the bright fire sap ability, right? So we can coat our swords, like Game of Thrones style with what's his face, the red priest, and
Therek Dondarrion, I think.
Therek Dondarrion, when he coats his sword, and the flames rise up from the sword. That's us, man.
So Rangers can coat their swords in sap, and I can coat my daggers in poison. So I hit you, you're poisoned. You hit me, I'm sticky. Is that what?
And on fire.
Burned.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Think of it like this. We swing napalm at you.
I don't know. Yeah, it sounds like to me, Rangers are just, do you guys ever see Christmas Vacation when he gets the tree and he's like, what's he saying? He goes, it's pretty full. Lots of sap. Yeah. He's going through the pages, the magazine, and they're like ripping off. That's Rangers right there.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, though, I am on a more serious note, less class pride. I'm glad to see that the focus is getting the more difficult classes in early. And since Ranger's really what I live and breathe right now, you look at some of those abilities that the Rangers have. One of the things doesn't even allude to, it says a manual aiming of the bow, for increased damage.
Same thing, yeah.
That's, I mean, without knowing anything from it or seeing it, that almost sounds like you're going into like a sniper view, like a first person mode to fire this shot. Or even if you're doing it as a third person over the shoulder view, going and manually aiming what's traditionally an auto attack, and then still having the auto attack mechanic, and then back flipping out of combat, or out of combat, but away from combat to do these things. That's a lot going on with that class, with just what we do see on the website right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
that shot that you're talking about, I've always wondered about that shot because it's so mechanically different.
You will never hit me with that shot.
There's a lot of things I'm not going to hit with that.
I'm gonna be like, Therek's around, we're dueling. I'm just move back and forth and do that like the snake military run.
Yeah, he's manually aiming. I'm good.
I don't think Therek's very good at shooters, so I should be okay. But like those Fortnite kids, oh man!
I just want to hear somebody in the background when I do hit you, just come in and go headshot.
Exactly. But that's crazy though. I mean, I have always worried about that mechanic, and like it's so different, and them being able to actually implement it. But I'm glad to hear that it's still there and it's on the site, and they're working on it. It makes me think of the Raging Gale kick with the monk that we talked about. How it's got that unique thing, you know.
Everyone's complaining about what rogues can do. You guys have like flying through the air kicks, manually aiming your bow. You got birds that pick you up and carry you away, so you don't have to die all the time. I mean,
the time will come when we are the target of the venom.
Well, you know what's going to happen is the half rangers, also known as the druids, are going to start complaining that they don't have as good of abilities that we have, and they're going to have to nerf us somehow.
Oh, I love it. Half rangers. Can we petition for druids to be called half rangers?
Oh man.
Now look, you just lost all your support. Like everyone was like, yeah, rogues are bad, make fun of Minus. Like, wait a second.
I mean, so you take half of the abilities of a ranger, the nature abilities, you've got a druid. You take half of the other abilities of a ranger, kind of like the warrior, and now you've got a warrior. But when you have the complete picture of both of those, you're a ranger.
Right. It's a good thing that you're an officer in the guild, because you might be overrun.
We're having a vote right after this show. Well, Zelik, thank you for your time on the show tonight. No, awesome stuff.
Yeah, thanks guys. It's been fun.
Okay, take it easy.
Right on, man. See ya.
All right, we got two left. We got Idiotech and DM Harms. Let's go ahead with Idiotech, and we will wrap up with DM Harms. Idiotech, if you are ready, I don't really know if you can do anything. You're already unmuted and you already have your headset on. So I'm just going to pull you and you're going to be like, oh, hey, I got pulled. I was talking to Hoye. Here it comes. What's up, Idiotech? How are you?
Good. Hold on. I'm disoriented.
That happens to me all the time when I used to be in the green room like that.
I knew you guys were pulling me in. Like I heard my name and then I was like, okay, wait. And then I clicked something and then, okay, things are happening. Okay.
Things are happening.
How are you doing?
Right. I'm doing well, man. I honestly feel like I haven't stopped talking since coming into the green room. So it's kind of like I'm just extending it here. It's just two people have entered my channel almost. That's what it feels like.
What are you guys talking about in there?
Well, dude, I mean, we started with, Hoye and kind of talking about the action sets and things. And, it's not like we were like negative. We were just talking about just the state of the game and what we're seeing. Yeah. But, from the most part, Minus, I don't know if you feel this way, man. Sometimes I wonder if I am blinded by my own fanboy syndrome. I like to listen to other people because I listen to them and I'm like, I'm not worried about that at all. And then I'm like, should I be?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things that, I do a lot that isn't necessarily seen here or on Twitter or social media is just talking to people. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of time in multiple Discords just reading a lot. And I know the joke is how much I talk, and don't get me wrong, I do talk a lot, but I would say like in a lot of the Discords, I just read. I'm just constantly reading. I agree with you. There's definitely stuff where I'm like, I'm in an odd place, and Therek, you're probably partially there too now, a lot more. I'm in a place where I dig so much for info that I feel like I have a lot more info at my disposal, or I can pull it up quickly, just because of how much I do it. So when a lot of topics are discussed, something scary I don't like because and it's all these things like that make sense, but then it's like because of this, and I'm like, oh well, that doesn't exist. So there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh well, or this is how it works, or I can't say something because of NDA. So there's a little bit of an advantage I have with my obsessive digging for info. And I don't expect people to have to do that. I think what would be great for the community is if people could have a high level of knowledge without having to do so much digging. Like that's why we try to put Pantheon Plus together and things that we do. But I think that, if there was an easier way to find information, I think that a lot more people would have a little bit more confidence because they'd be able to reference some of the stuff that's missed. Like recently, Joppa threw out some amazing conversational points on the unofficial Discord. If you were there, you got to see it. If you weren't there, you missed it probably. So it's that kind of thing where sometimes there's a lot of questions because there's just not, people don't have the ability to navigate all the knowledge or navigate all the information because it's kind of all over the place. So for me, people, I joke all the time. People call me a white knight. That pisses me off. Like it actually does. Like that's the only thing that anyone can say that I get a little, right. Yeah, whatever. I'm over it a second later, but it's like, and it's because, I am very confident. Like here's the funny part, right? Like people say like that I'm a white knight or that I'm like you kind of said, like, do you ever think you're too positive? Well, I'm also the guy that says I don't hate cash shops. And I'm also the guy that says I like transmog. All those things are completely anti-Pantheon, right? It's, I mean, you can't be both. So I really think one of the things that I wish I could help with better is just consolidating all that information so people could get to it a little bit better. That's all.
And I think you're doing that, man. Yeah. And I definitely, I came in here pretty much, if Job is listening right now, I'll just say it like, I'm happy. Like I'm happy with the game. I'm happy with like everything, every stream that I see is a positive to me. I don't see anything that's notably negative. And I see people's points, but I don't want to harken on that either. I know we're here to talk on things, but I found it funny because when I do hop into like chat with people, we're discussing, and a lot of the discussions are around things that I'm okay with, and I'll discuss it and I'll give my point of view. But most of the time I'm like, oh, I love that, or I like this.
It also stems from like where it stems from what have we been through that's had an impact on us. There are people who have played, one or two MMOs for most of their life and excessively and watch things they love be killed. Yeah. And if that happens to you, then that means like you're going to really hate those things. Like they ruined your favorite experience. And I totally understand that. I think also possibly just because I have played so many MMORPGs now, I've fallen in love with EverQuest, and then I fell in love with WoW. But outside of EverQuest and WoW, you maybe Blade and Soul for a short period of time, but nothing like those two have any other game ever affected me. So because I'm jumping around all these different games and having these different experiences personally, and like Therek, you're doing that now. Like we're doing the MMORPG classes, and like I'll tell you guys, like we were playing Dark Age of Camelot last week. When I loaded it up and started running around, I was like, ugh, this is going to be rough. Like I have to play this game for a month. But then we played and Nathan was leading us and it was awesome. Like we had a lot of fun actually.
Yeah.
I just think there's tons of variables. And Bronson said, do you, and it's a great question. Do you ever feel you're overconfident? I just think it's who I am. And I'm not saying that. Man. Like I just, if you come to me in my regular job in retail, I've been in retail my whole life, and you see me in the store, like being energetic and being positive and joking with customers, and I don't know. I think we've all had moments of our life. I'm sorry, I'm getting so deep here, but Therek's like, shut up, Minus. This is why
I'm bringing another part of the stream here.
We have all had moments where we were miserable in life. Some way more than others, some way darker than others. And I went through that. Like when I was in high school, I had a rough life. I had a very rough life growing up. I had a rough family life for times. And I think that I hit my limit in letting that bother me. And it doesn't have anything to do with Pantheon. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with Pantheon. It doesn't have anything to do with gaming. It's what I believe. Therek, how many times have I told you I don't have time to invest in being miserable? So
and your time is the most valuable thing to you. You've said that before too.
And that's why I joke with people about like cash shops and loot boxes. Like, and it's just a joke, guys. But when someone's like, well, I can't believe someone spent money on that. So, well, time technically is more valuable than money. I do believe that, but I'm not sitting here like saying that they should be there. And no, I don't want them in Pantheon. But like, to me, this is gaming. I love it. It's my favorite hobby. Yeah. And there's so much crap going on in the world right now. I don't want it in my gaming. So if I'm going to fall in love with a game and play a game-a-ton, or like I do with Pantheon, or like I did with Hades, Therek got me obsessed with that. That's all his fault. Why do I want like, I am okay knowing that there are going to be a lot of things in Pantheon I do not like, but I'm okay with that. Because in WoW, there was a bunch of things I didn't like. In EQ, there was a bunch of things I didn't like. Every single MMO I've ever played had a bunch of things I didn't like. So for me, that's par for the course. That doesn't bother me. I try to focus more on what I like. And like class I did. Does anyone here need to be convinced that I love classes at this point?
Yeah.
When
and
you're
gonna,
yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I said that to when me and Hoya were talking. I did say that, and his first MMO, I think he said, was EverQuest 2. I think me and you have a pretty like kind of common lineage in the sense that I didn't play EverQuest, but I played FF11. We talked about how those were kind of like sister games at least. Yeah. And then I went to WoW until like about Cataclysm, and then I enjoyed games like Terra Online and like these action MMOs. So I think we had like a similar, love for MMOs as they progressed through like 2010s.
And here's the thing with that. So I had to come to terms with this. And Therek, I think me and you talked about this. I was really negative towards those people that only played like EverQuest for a little while. And I was like, what do you like? There's so much more out there. But I get it. Like, it's okay to just enjoy a certain aspect of a genre. You don't have to love the whole genre. I love the whole genre. I really do. I love some of the bad games. I love some of the good games. I really do. I played Bless when it came out. I was like, this game's not as bad as everybody's saying it is. I'm playing Magic Legends right now. It's getting flamed everywhere. I'm having fun. It's just fun because that's what games are. And right now, are there a ton of MMORPGs out there for us to play? No. For this group, there's not a ton of that style game people want. I get it. But as gamers, there are more games right now available to play than ever before at any time. And if you don't like something, don't waste your time complaining about it. Go find the game you like. Like that's like, I don't like.
And I think that's what we did.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. And I played Rift at the beginning. I loved it. And then I jumped out. I played City of Heroes. I loved it for a bit. I jumped out. I had a character that dressed like McDonald's. That was my Mickey D. That was his name. MMORPGs are what you make out of them and who you play with for the most part. And that's, I think, what it's always going to be. And here's my thing. To the bottom of my core, I trust Visionary Realms. I just do. Yeah. And I'm willing to say that, and I'm willing to believe in that.
I think that's what that's a quicker way of saying what I said when I came in, that I was like, I'm happy with everything. Everything that they say, I'm okay with. And, just to touch on a little bit of what was said tonight. First off, Saicred was awesome seeing him, because I used to watch him, I think before I watched you guys. Like,
he was around way before us. Yeah, way before us.
And I used to just watch him like break down, the early class moves and stuff like that. Like the same as I did with everyone else that was there. It was cool to, what did you do? You looked for like anyone who was talking about the game. I would go to YouTube and put Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, and then go to like the thing that, in the last week, and then you scroll through and nothing, and it would always be like League of Legends Pantheon, the character from League of Legends. I'm like, I don't care about that. I want this game. And you'd always find these people, and he was one of those people that I would like love listening to because he was super positive about the game, and I'm glad to see he's now.
Yeah, he deserves that guy deserves every single praise that he gets, and having him on that team is so massive. I joke with Saicred so much, and we bust each other's balls more than I can ever explain to you. We used to be in a guild together before he was with the VR team, and there were nights where I was going to go to bed at 1 o'clock and it was 5 a.m. We were still busting each other's balls. Like, the guy is character personified, skill personified, and he cares. And that's, and when I say I believe in VR, it's because they see a guy like that and they bring him in, and he is the right pick. And that's what their team's filled with. Like Ronik and I can name everybody, but I'm not going to do that. But like, when you have a small team, each piece of that team is so important. And you can't have a bad egg, right? Like, you can't, like, you don't have enough people to have a bad egg. So
and I'm glad he's doing that, because I loved watching him, and he always had really good insight. So like when I watched tonight, I was like, yeah, everything was really cool. I liked seeing where he was coming from and how he's like going to balance the game.
Yeah.
I will say nighttime, dope. I loved everything about thinking about that. You know, my brain went crazy once he's talked about it before, but because he harkened on it so specifically, I was like, wow, there really is going to be something to that as well.
Well, Tech, sorry for completely going on a minus rant. It's been a little bit. Therek, it's been a little bit. Has it?
I'm glad
I didn't get to do any rewinds for 2 weeks. I'm all pent up.
Yeah, that's the problem. Exactly.
That's what it is. Therek, it's your fault, man.
I know it is. It's always my fault somehow.
Yeah, what world are we in that it's Therek's fault? It's always my fault. Today's a great day. All right, thank you, Idiotech. I appreciate it, man.
Of course. Have a good one.
See you, man. Take care.
We got so off track, but I don't know what the show is, right? Just talking. Derek's like, shut up. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. All right. Last person we're bringing in is DM Harm. So DM, as soon as I see that mic, we'll finish up the show. He says he's always the caboose. Do I make him go last a lot? Maybe it's because I want that strong closer.
Yeah, I think let's go with that. Go with that.
All right. So the strong closer, he's coming in. Enter Sandman. We have our own Mariano Rivera coming up to the plate here. What's up, DM Harms? How are you? He's not coming through. Can you hear him? He's lighting up.
He's falling asleep.
I bet his mic's muted or something. Oh. Check.
That should work, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Now we got.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Someone said, and Mariano blew the save.
Yeah, we always bring you in last, and I feel bad because you have to talk so quiet.
It's okay. It's okay. We've all worked it out.
Say
now Therek's turned into a robot.
What's up, man?
Okay, my internet's actually been going crappy lately, so I hope it's not me. All right,
Canada internet. He's frozen on screen too. Oh, there he is. Now he's moving. Good.
There are a few ways I wanted to kind of wrap this up, but since we've been talking so much about class identity, I'm just really thinking about when Saicred's talking about balancing, and they've done itemization changes. The new or the next pre-alpha is supposed to test how items affect your character. So they really want to get that feel right. And I don't want to circle back too much because I know this has been really exhaustive on, we've been talking about the rogue and picking on the CCing and stuff, but I'm really thinking about the challenge that comes with not balancing around a single class identity or class role, sorry. But on the other side of that, I'm seeing a lot of benefit to class identity by having secondary roles. The thing that was popping into my head that I actually ended up not popping into Hoye was I was thinking about it, and if you were a monk and you were just DPS, you just punch things. That's your kit, right? You punch things, maybe you get some like stuns or something. That wouldn't feel very good, right? if you're a rogue and you just poke stuff with daggers, but you put poison on the daggers, that wouldn't feel very good.
No, agreed.
And so with Saicred kind of talking about, class balance and having to balance these abilities, and we already talked about some horizontal aspects of that. There's just a few things that really come to mind, and that's the split of roles in classes is actually part of their identity, and how much of the split of roles as well. Like rogues, you might even consider them almost like 60-40 at this point from what we saw in the stream. And so he has to balance around a 60% quote DPS, 40% potential CC support class. And so I gotta kind of commend him for taking on that challenge. But for the community, I just want it to be known like how big of a job this design is. It's massive, and he super simplified it like really well with the whole we're going like 1 to 100, which is kind of something to look forward to, because they're also talking about past max level, but it's way more complicated than that. And I think what I'm sorry, it's super late, and I just totally lost something because I tried to look at
chat. Let me throw something in.
Yeah, go ahead, cut in, because
I want you to take this for a second, because this is my thought. He's talking about identity, right? And I thought of lore.
Mm-hmm.
I thought of lore right away,
mm-hmm.
right? So think of Greyborn.
Yeah.
For her to have identity, it takes depth. Depth is identity. If a class doesn't have enough depth, then does it really have an identity? And I kind of looked at lore like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you can describe something practical in a non-practical way is the best way to describe it. And those signature characters, when I asked JN, what describes class identity best in your mind, that's what he pointed out, was those signature characters. He talked about Thale and Greyborn. He talked about Janisova, about Arakamel Dawn, and sort of how what that meant to them, individually as characters. And then think about us as players. We all have mains. We have class we prefer the most, and we know the identity of that class. But Saicred can't play it from that angle, right? He's got to look at every class and think about then, now, like you said, DM, like it's what's the secondary role? How much balance do I need to account for with that, right? If we're going to allow for that sort of flexing into at a cost for a limited amount of time, a secondary role in a group, how do I balance for that? So, it's you're right. It's not easy. It's a very, very difficult job, and he did simplify it. He made it understandable and easy to grasp. But depth, like you said, Minus, it's about depth too, and nobody wants to play a game with vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate, right? We want some interesting flavors in there. We don't want homogenization. We don't want everybody can do everything. That's not what we're talking about.
No one wants Neapolitan.
Well, I don't know what, I know that they don't want like single, I'm like you said, I'm a monk and I punch things, right? That's
well, look at the rogues. So let's single up the rogue real quick, because we've seen so much of it, right? Janisova. Doesn't the way that the rogue plays represent him a bit more? He's more about manipulation. He's not, he'll take something out if he has to kill it, but he's also going to do it as a last resort almost if he can't manipulate it to his will instead. And that's kind of what the playstyle was of the rogue. Like, so when you talk about JN saying that these signature characters represent how the class should play, well, then that's perfect.
Yeah. It's almost as if he was a rogue that ended up using his mastery in a different way than another rogue.
Exactly. That's perfect. Right? Exactly. And I love that aspect of it, because it's not just a straight line to your goal. If you're that class, there's alternate ways of accomplishing things, right? So
Right. And the other big thing of that I wanted to kind of just bring up into the conversation that I hadn't seen anyone talking about, surprisingly, is when we're talking about, okay, they're designing around classes having primary and secondary role. Like, everyone's kind of condensed that to be so focused on the one player. We have to talk about how are these primary secondary things going to slot in with other classes that have their own primary secondary. Like, is it actually going to be beneficial, like a really good thing, to have two shamans in a group that work off of each other? Like, I think a lot of people are seeing it as classes stepping on their each other's toes versus just one other player. But like, perhaps for a certain application, two shamans specialized in their own kind of set of mastery and abilities might be able to do more than a shaman and a CC class in a certain situation. But how a Dire Lord works with a shaman might not be as good as a Dire Lord works with a cleric. Or in that case, maybe a Dire Lord works better with a certain spec shaman than the other spec shaman. Like, this is the stuff that makes primary, secondary roles that they're talking about way less trivial than people are making it out to be. And the kind of icing on top of this is, guys, we haven't seen any high level gameplay.
Yeah, it's a great point.
We're throwing like pebbles at this building, trying to bring it down, and it just, I'm not saying it's pointless. I think the feedback is awesome, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But as far as scope, we really need to kind of broaden how we're thinking about this if we're going to kind of look to Saicred and be like, all right, Saicred, you crunch these numbers, you move some stuff around, but Saicred's not just moving numbers on a spreadsheet. He's having to take into consideration how a rogue that has moved into a more support role in sacrificing his damage is going to work with the shaman that has decided they're going to focus on the debuffs. Like, that might actually be a crazy combo that you would never think about if you're just like, well, the shaman's going to heal better if he's in the healing spec.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right at the start of the stream, the phrase that they used was making the numbers come to life, right? Looking at it from a holistic perspective. That's exactly what you're talking about. So you're right. I mean, top-down view, and you're right. We haven't seen high-level gameplay. We've seen some basic stuff. We haven't seen where this is all going to come into this great sort of mix.
Awesome.
Absolutely, guys.
Well, DM, thanks for being that anchor at the end of the show to wrap us up. Some thought-provoking comments and commentary there. I appreciate it, buddy.
Happy to be the caboose, guys. See you next time.
Right on. See you, man.
Well, we'll wrap up here, Therek. We'll both get some sleep. But I want to read, Joppa put a comment out there, which kind of tied into what you guys were talking about. Great. A few ingredients are currently missing in perspective. One, a clear picture of the difficulty and oscillating chaos of higher level encounters, which you guys were kind of hinting at. And number two, the multifaceted and awesome power of the primary CC class. That's what is funny to me. People haven't seen an enchanter yet, right? Yeah. A full enchanter doesn't exist right now. What if that enchanter makes me look like a fool compared to what it can do? Then people are like, oh yeah, you should probably give minus more ability because he sucks compared to this enchanter, right? So.
Stick to the daggers, rogue.
Yeah. The enchanter does it and buffs everybody up and debuffs them and nukes. It's like, oh, well, I just stand here invisible.
Yeah. You know what? That's right. Then that's like what DM was saying, like we're at the beginning of this thing, like we haven't seen it. We haven't seen the next stage, the next level of things yet. And it's like, don't forget about the rest of the stuff that's going to come down the pipe.
Someone said, don't quit your DPS job.
It's pretty good.
That's a good one.
Quit your DPS job, man. That's really well said.
Man. Well, everybody, I want to say thank you very much for an incredible Pantheon PlusYou tonight. Thank you to Visionary Realms for a great stream. Thank you to Saicred for opening up that world for people and doing it, as you guys both said, in a very easy to understand way. You could get very number heavy there and confuse a bunch of people. You did a great job with that. Thank you to the community for hanging out with us tonight. It was an awesome show. We had over 50 people hanging out all night. Green Room was rocking tonight. You guys did an amazing job coming in here. And again, thank you, Joppa, for the comments and clarifying what you can, to everybody in the chat who has their questions and just awesome stuff. So the last thing I'm do is this is our platform, so why not use it for a cheap plug here, Therek? Episode 50 of the Rewind. We're 1 year old. So how crazy is this? This is episode 52 or 4. What is it? 54. It's right there on the screen. Episode 54, Pantheon PlusYou. But we're gonna hit 50 episodes of the Rewind podcast that we do. That's coming up this Sunday. And as a special thing we wanted to do with it, this is really cool. Haya is gonna be there for the entire recording of the podcast, and Poiru is going to be there for the podcast. So it's going to be myself, Therek, Poiru, and Haya. People don't even believe that Poiru exists. You are going to hear him. We also are thinking of renaming the show 3 Canadians and a Halfling. So
right, yes.
I don't know what happened.
We're tossing that around. We're going to focus group that thing.
Yeah. I've just, for some reason, I surround myself with Canadians. Obviously, the only member that you guys are familiar with of Pantheon Plus who won't be there is Drac. It's just because he has things he has to do. Trust me, he was invited. I don't want you guys to think there's some kind of turmoil. But we're going to have a pretty big episode 50. On top of that, we want to thank, and they're in the chat, Bounty Code and Sparrow are going to be giving away. These are community members who are just super supportive of Pantheon, super supportive of the Pantheon Plus community, super supportive of us. They are giving a $100 legat. Is that how you said it? That's how you spelled it? Legat. Yeah. Was it Canadian too? Is this a Canadian pledge as well? Legat.
Legat. That's why we're having them on, just so they can pronounce it the whole show.
Yeah. So, but they're these two are awesome. They're giving out a $100 Pantheon pledge to the community. So if you aren't pledged yet and you want to get in there, jump in. It's easy. You just tell Therek you want to be in. He'll do a random poll at the end of the show, the premiere that comes up this Sunday. If you're somebody who is pledged, but your kid who wants to play isn't, or your wife or your significant other, great time to get them involved too. So hopefully we see you guys there. It should be a really fun episode. Again, cheap plug here, but it is our platform. Why wouldn't we use it?
I hope to see everybody come out on Sunday and get a big chat going. And we have a great time. Every Sunday is a great time. I look forward to it, like all week, a cup of coffee, and we just joke around, and it's just a good time. So come on out.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Thank you again to everybody at VR, and Therek, of course. Thank you for being an amazing co-host all the time.
Awesome.
All right, take it easy, guys. We are out for the night. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night, everybody.